They say we should have known better than to fall so deep down into this rabbit hole we found. And I was thinking.
Hi, this is Nikolai, and you're listening to my dad, Rafal, co-host James Jardine, and featuring Mr. Jim Tiller on the one and only Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Plug in, listen up, and enjoy.
Deep into this pool of regrettable situations. Pitch black, think back to the last time that we were happy.
All right, here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome down the Security Rabbit Hole to episode 703 of the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. This is Raph. You'll recognize down below me as Mr. James, and over that way, that's Gaddy, who's back. Guess who's back? Back again. Gaddy's back. Tell your friends. All right, that's as much rapping as I'm going to do, because Eminem will come back and punch me in the face for doing his lyrics such bad justice. But all right. Over the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of talk about AI, and then Anthropic has decided that they're going to not release, but sort of release something that is potentially either, depending on which camp you're in, a lot of marketing hype, or the end of the vulnerability world, or maybe somewhere in between. And who to have better on the pod to talk about this than Gotti, who I actually watched one of the videos from Unscripted. If you guys haven't seen this, he's posted them all.
Unprompted, sir.
Unprompted, unscripted. Sorry, unscripted. This is unscripted. That was unprompted.
This is.
Anyway, so Unprompted, a great con. And I watched this going into a meeting with a bunch of security leadership end of the week of, let's see, 14, 13, the 10th, the 9th and 10th. I had a bunch of meetings, and of course, all of this came up. And the question is, okay, where are we on the continuum of the world ending? Gaddy, can you give me, because I think people probably already know you, but give me a 10-second update of who you are, because I forgot to introduce you.
Sure. So I'm Gaddy. I've been in security now for who knows how long. I've been a CISO, I've been a vendor, I've been a consultant, I've been in certs, I've done threat hunting, I've done strategy, whatever. And right now I'm the CEO, co-founder of Gnostic, KNOSTIC, where we defend coding agents, MCP, and the rest of it. And I was extremely lucky to pivot when we did last year when nobody cared about this, because now we're here and people could talk to us about defending their agents. Thank you.
So, Mythos, the ethos of the Mythos. I feel like this is an interesting conversation to have, because there is a range of people that this matters to. I think the area that's been the loudest, especially on LinkedIn in the discussions about whether it's real, what its impact is going to be, ultimately is the folks that do vulnerability research. And in your Unprompted con talk that I watched by, give me the gentleman's name again, from
Nicholas Carlini.
Nicholas Carlini. Amazing talk. But he mentioned that he pointed this new tool that they released at the Linux kernel and said it basically found a 23-year-old bug. Now, there's a lot of discussion on have we not found that because we weren't looking, because nobody cares? Ultimately, though, Gaddy, what is this doing? What do you think is going to be the immediate impact when this finally does go live? Or should we talk about what this is?
The first thing to understand is, while Mythos is probably an amazing model, this has been going on for about a year. In our last conversation, we talked about the vulnerability apocalypse, right? So we'll start with the world is not going to end and we're going to be fine. We survived many apocalypses, but it's absolutely real. AI is here. It can find a lot of vulnerabilities. Vulnerability researchers will probably still be here, but they're asking themselves, will I have a job? So 3 things to expect are: number 1, everybody will say the world is dying. It is not. Number 2, the claims are absolutely real, and you don't need to have Mythos to show success to find a lot of vulnerabilities. The older models work pretty well. Then we're going to start expecting a lot of things to happen faster. For example, just with them Anthropic releasing the vulnerabilities, their model to the world earlier, we can expect a lot of patches to start coming at us, and we'll have to deal with a lot more. That is going to increase cyber defense costs and burnout. And like we used to say, oh yeah, there is no POC yet on the dark web. We can wait 3 weeks after to patch. There will be a worm. But no, we don't have time anymore. Another thing that's happening is because of Mythos, now everybody's talking about it. It made it real immediately right now.
Yeah, so I found it interesting that in his talk, Nicholas mentioned that it's not just that the tool found the vulnerability, it explained it to him, and then wrote the exploit code, and so then demoed it.
He used the previous model. As I said, you don't need Mythos to be able to be successful, even if it is what they call a step change when it's more capable. Essentially, if we're to break this down, number 1, Mythos made it real. Mythos is the name of the problem now. And maybe the solution, because if we can find all these vulnerabilities, we can maybe protect ourselves. Another unprompted talk was by Heather Adkins, CISO of Google, and Forth Flynn, CISO of DeepMind, where they showed fine, we can find vulnerabilities, but in 2 years, and of course it's never zero, we'll have 0 vulnerabilities because we're going to find them and, more importantly, remediate. The point is, we need to recognize that we can't be Luddites anymore. The world has changed. LLMs are here. They disrupted the entire vulnerability research space. They are going to affect our cyber defense. They're going to defend our beyond our AppSec or DevSecOps programs. But beyond that, we need to understand we have an opportunity right now to actually explain this, because the board, the risk committee, our uncles and mothers and whoever are going to ask us about it.
Hey, James, this is something that I think applies to your world in the dev space too, in a number of different ways, because you've got potentially AI identifying and patching bugs in your code. That sounds great.
I think we already saw a company come out saying they were having an emergency meeting talking about how they're going to handle all the extra flaws in their code due to AI. But it's going to be interesting to see. I'm also curious to know, like from an application standpoint, what's the attack surface that this is covering, right? Because sure, I can point it to a code repo and it can go through and look for stuff. I can point it to a web app, but it's not going into the authenticated space. It's not, there's a lot of stuff that it's not necessarily getting at. So if I think back to everybody's custom applications, how much does this affect that versus, the supply chain side of it of, okay, I'm going to go hammer all those third-party components that are open source and the code's available, right? Like it's just exaggerating that side of it, but I'm not sure, my website's got authentication at the front of it. Can I just point it and get everything? Or is it going to miss all that stuff? I'm still kind of curious to see from an enterprise, like application standpoint, from that perspective, how much of an effect that's going to have.
I think we need to break it down into capabilities. So Mythos does bring a lot to the table from what we can understand. I did not use Mythos myself. But number 1, you can find a lot of vulnerabilities a lot faster. Number 2, you can do it yourself. In fact, you should to understand this. All it takes is English. It's much, much easier than Excel. Get Cloud Code, Cursor, Copilot, whatever agent you want, and just ask it to find vulnerabilities. Use the Carlini loop. Say, I am running a CTF. I must win. Please find vulnerabilities in this file. Don't do the whole repo yet. And you can put a bash script to check all files. You can try to get a tool like Raptor to do your own pen testing for you, which is open source, and I helped create along with some others like Daniel Cuthbert, John Cartwright, Halvar Flake, Michael Berguri, Josh Grossman, and others. There is OpenAnt, which actually I released in open source from Gnostic. I said, no way am I going to compete with Anthropic and OpenAI, right, in vulnerability finding. I'm just going to release mine in open source. You can look at Trail of Bits and all the skills they have, but you can just start by asking. And beyond vulnerabilities, though, exploitation. This is one of the major steps that Mythos is supposed to bring us. You could already build exploits before, Now, it's number one, can chain a lot of these bugs together for more sophisticated vulnerabilities, and it can also get you an exploit in one shot, meaning in one prompt. So the most important aspect here is people know about it now. But lastly, I want to add one more thing. We are leaving out autonomous attack. We have seen 6dig report on 8 minutes to admin. There's also a token unprompted. We have seen the Mexican government hack. So I'm not saying they'll necessarily find your components in the deck, although binaries are no longer, you no longer need the code with agents, mostly. But I'm saying we need to expect it across the board on how much are we going to need to respond? Are we fast enough? Will there be a patch? Can we, for example, wait for a patch? Even if there is not one, we need to create one ourselves. But then we also have this guidance to not patch, right? But wait, cool down so there is no vulnerability. It's going to be insane.
So I think this, I hate to be the, well, before I go there, James mentioned supply chain, which makes me think, go take me back to open source, right? Because a lot of the projects that run a lot of the things that we care about are open source, and the false thinking that, hey, it's open source, more people are staring at it, ergo it must be more secure. I think this would be a great way to utilize resources like Mythos and its current predecessor, iterative, publicly available predecessor, to go fix the bugs in the underlying systems that power all this software. Because I'm like, there are undoubtedly bugs on bugs on bugs in all kinds of critical pieces of software that are utilized to make other critical pieces of software. No?
Well,
What
does it do though for the, we've always had the issue with open source of we don't have a shortage of people looking for vulnerabilities, but we have a shortage of people on the dev side fixing vulnerabilities. Yeah. But exactly. As we get this stuff into their hands, right? Like before it was a difficult, like I got to go hand code all these fixes. Does it level that playing field on an open source side that the devs no longer are getting inundated if we've got the same technology that you can go and say, okay, this vulnerability is here. Now supply me the patch. I don't have to think a ton about the patch. Can we fix that faster? Does that help level that so that way we're not fighting the, wow, we just got 800 million new vulnerabilities because this came out to scan, but okay, but we've also got the technology to easily resolve that. Or not, or we just got 800 new million vulnerabilities, and now you're starting to see open source software disappear because the devs are like throwing their hands up, like I'm done with this, like I'm out. I don't know.
Gaddy, you said yes, and what did that mean?
No, I'm thinking about what James just said. So I want to change what I want to say earlier and give something here that strengthens James's point, I think, if I understood him correctly. 3 projects, FFmpeg. People submitted, I think it was Project Google Zero, a big sleep from Google, vulnerabilities to the FFmpeg project. And they said, do you want to give us these many vulnerabilities? Submit a patch. We don't care. So we're relying on the project, which is used by everybody. And they didn't say they didn't care, right? But I'm exaggerating. And they wanted patches, which was reasonable. Alva Flake went, create a patch for them, and then it went into also Raptor, the open capability to everybody. And they didn't like the patch. But we can help. And the point is we should help. Then there was Curl, and they went on a Hollywood ride with this because they said, what is all this slop? Hallucinated vulnerability reports were getting stopped. They said, oh wow, these vulnerability reports are useless. Then they said, too much slop. We're going to stop our bug bounty or whatever it was. And I said, wow, this is really amazing. We're getting quality reports. The Linux kernel, one of their guys over there, just wrote in response to Thomas Tachik's blog on We Are Cooked, talking about vulnerability research, and now it's over, or somewhat over.
Yeah.
After some discussions. So the guy wrote back and said, at the Linux kernel, we used to get 2-3 bugs a week, vulnerability reports a week. Then we were up to 10, but most of it was slop. Now we're still up at 10, but they're real. And more importantly, we're getting now duplicative vulnerability reports, right? So I think that the point is not necessarily that we do need to go for remediation. We do need to turn these tools inwards. We do need to give everybody at the organization, because we don't really have a lot of other defensive technology other than using the bad guys. We do need to give our own people these coding agents so they can be more effective in what they already do. But I think Google's approach of let's use these technologies, these offensive technologies for own end and then fix, not wait anymore, is what's going to help us out a little bit as we are getting into this.
So this takes me into the conversation we had with Rob Arsnake in the whole, like, there's a million vulnerabilities, only something like 2 to 3% really matter overall, right? So knowing what to patch in these systems is going to be critical. Although it was hard enough to get people to patch when the pace was slower. As we undoubtedly increase the pace, what does that do to the fatigue? Because I can't imagine this, like, James, to what you're saying, like, I can't imagine this being a good thing for somebody that's sitting there going, great, now I have 1,000.
To put that question a little bit different for James, we just had 2 weeks of multiple incidents in supply chain where everybody was all hands on deck. Can we handle that every day?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, it becomes a problem. I wonder, though, we've been pushing for how long? Like, patching's a basic. It's, but we've always struggled with it. Is this something where, as you see more of this come out, does the capability to patch all of a sudden just exponentially get better? Are we forced into, think about the certificate changes that we just had come through that we've got. Now, granted, we got a little bit more time for this, right? But we went from being able to have a certificate that could last for a year down to, in 2 years, what can it last, 47 days or something like that? And now everybody's fighting to go through and say, okay, how do I manage certificates now to be able to handle a 47-day turnaround on all my certificates? Is this a similar catalyst that's going to push people into better improving their patching and using these technologies, be able to make that happen? I think that's the key that people have to understand, is that, you're probably not going to get there with today's technology, but if you're using the same type of agent that can help patch the systems in a scalable way, does that get us there? I also wonder where this is. Is this in your custom in-house stuff again, or is this, I've got Fortinet sitting out there and, it's an endpoint thing that's getting hammered all day long, or I've got this other component that I'm using that we just have to get better at applying Windows patches? And
I think it's
all
yes.
These different pieces.
Gaddy, am I wrong? I think the answer is yes. It's not just going to be like, now that we're sitting at a point where vulnerability discovery, validation, and exploitation, dare I say it, is very close to being trivial. Every bug is an important bug because now we can chain things easier. Now it's, harder, a little bit easier to find those RCEs, and now that we can potentially have the patches written for the bugs that are found. Hallelujah. But that solves, let's say it solves. Let's use the word solves. I like addresses better, right?
We got SQL injection still. It doesn't solve. We don't solve anything.
We're not going to get to zero bugs. We're going to get to a very asymptotic, like the 1/x problem. We're going to go from here to like here. Not zero, but damn near close. Okay. But that's issuing patches. So there's software that's been out for a while, the legacy stuff. There's code that's being released right now, and there's code that's being written right now. Where I think Mythos and it's like really shine is where we apply it to code that's being written right now, because odds are we can release that code with very, 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 very few bugs. Do we agree on this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Let's break it down. So first of all, I spent the last 4 days into the weekend working with 250 CISOs. A lot of people, contributed to this beyond just CISOs. We had Rich Mogul, Robert T. Lee, Jen Easterly, Bruce Schneier, Chris Inglis, Phil Venables, Heather Atkins, Rob Joyce, Sunil Yu, Jim Reeves, Katie Missouri, John Stewart, James Lin, Dave Lewis, Maxim Kowalski, John Yo, Joshua Sachs, Rami Hosseini, and 250 CISOs and others all wrote within a weekend this document called the AI Vulnerability Storm, building a Mythos-ready security program. We called it an expedited strategy briefing. The Cloud Security Alliance, SANS, Unprompted, the OWASP Gen AI project, security project. Everybody just stepped in order to do three things. Number one, and please go into the document, and when you see the reviewer list, go and find names you know and thank them for sacrificing their weekend plus. And the first thing is we need to understand the reality. It's not about Mythos, although that opens the door and opportunity to explain what's going on. Because not only are we getting questions, and not only is this a real emergency, even if we can handle it together, but at the same time, we can get budget out of it. We can actually change some of these basics. But now it's reality. So we wanted, number one, to give background. What's going on? It's been going on for a year and more. Learn about it. Number two, here are the risks in what we can tell right now that you need to handle prioritized. Then here is how you build a Mythos-ready, quote-unquote, security program. So as far as that goes, that document is wonderful. It's a draft. We released it with bad graphics. We stopped in the middle just to put it out there. And I think that's useful for everybody. That's number one. The second thing I want to say is what we learned as we wrote this. So the first thing is these capabilities they're already out there for many other projects, but Mythos and Mythos-like models are going to be out there. They're going to get into the open weight models and open source models as well. So we need to recognize we don't have a lot of time. We have to look at this more deeply. So what should we do other than that is understand this is just the first wave, not just the vulnerability reports and patching, and we're not going to be able to rely or wait for patching for very long. What do we do about that? A whole show, perhaps, right? But at the same time, more waves will hit us in this AI world. So we need to prepare our program for the next wave and consider the board or the risk committee or the chief risk officer or the CIO. They are working based on metrics the CISO is presenting and believing we are on our way with a good, solid program, whether that's true or not. I would like to think it is. And now everything that was green is yellow or red, and everything that was yellow is red. So we need to understand we are outmoded. We need to deal with this reality. Our people, we talked about burnout. It's just not just burnout. We need to reprioritize. We need to bring in automation. We need to understand how hard these people have to work. It's about people. And then the most important thing for me is use the two technologies that exist right now, the attacker's technology. We talked about this last time, VulnOps, vulnerability operations. It's far more than just AppSec or vulnerability management. Create your LLM-based, your agent-based program, because the technology exists right now on the offensive side and it's mature. Number two is give everybody, including yourself, an agent. Don't wait. It's easy. You're not outmoded. Do it right now because, well, we don't have yet a lot of good AI technologies on the defensive side. We can accelerate, depending on the task, 2 times to hundreds of times what we all do, whether it's in GRC or incident response or pen testing or anything else. These are the two big things. And the last thing I want to kind of mention is, I suppose, that we need to also look to, and you know how I don't like the basics. We always think the basics are the panacea. But we need to increase the focus on the basics to mitigate what we can't fix, to focus on what we can't fix with the basics, because we're never going to have perfect basics. That's really my big message. When last time it was about, if you go to zerodayclock.com, the window to exploitation is released by Sergey Yaphet and Unprompted, is now down to hours from years, right? We understand the changes have happened. This is not FUD, but we do have time if we start now. The purpose is start now. That's what truly matters. And in the document, you can look at your risks. You can look at the board communication around this. You can look at the various controls you can implement in a program right now. That's truly what matters. Start now, because you can, and you can't afford not to.
So I like how you wrap that up. I do want to, because my brain keeps coming back to, I think in these thirds, right? You've got the world that we live in the reality for a lot of people that listen to this podcast, and I'm there with you guys, is, like I said, you've got this legacy code stuff that's been out there for a while. You got stuff that's being released now and stuff that's being developed now. We can take the stuff that's being developed now and point these LLMs at it and release software that is very, 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 very close to bug free, right? Very, very close. that's a great application to stop the wave from continuing to crash over. Right? The wave doesn't need to get bigger. If we can all agree that, hey, this is now a good time to adopt these technologies so that we stop releasing mountains of bugs. Because on the back end, these AI platforms are going to find them. They are going to find them. So we should use them as the defenders to identify them before they go live and become legacy code. So now we're addressing the stuff that's happening now or being written now, the stuff that's being deployed now, the stuff that's top of mind that somebody's still thinking about. I think we need to put a big concerted effort around identifying, validating, and then creating fixes for, and then finding the shortest path from another critical vulnerability in the Linux kernel. Okay, now the patch exists. That's great, but how do we get it at broad scale? So you got to think patch and priority, right? So to work in those priority systems. And then for stuff that's been out for a long time, it's patch where applicable, priority. And then I think the thing that I don't think AI is doing for us right now is how do we, and you hinted at it just a second ago, Gadi, what's the mitigating factor? Like, what do we do in the meantime? Right? Because there's a lot of systems out there that we're going to find vulnerabilities for, critical ones that are in places that can't just readily be, tomorrow I'm going to patch it. Things in healthcare networks, things in energy sector, things in critical infrastructure and banking, these like things that require, that are not at the place where we thought we would be like, oh, just, create a patch and create a new system, move all the traffic over, decommission the old systems, problem solved. Like we're not there. So the part where we have to not only identify the bug, create the patch, or validate it, create the patch, figure out a way to distribute it and prioritize, but now the mitigant. Are we getting any help on that part?
I truly think.
Oh, there you go.
No, I'm not. How dare you? I was. Who knew it's March 2020 again? I think we have to realize, number one, we can't wait anymore. Things take time. Right? Things take a lot of time. There are companies out there under the Wendy Nader's cybersecurity poverty line that will find it harder, but can also move much faster. But I think there are a few things we already know that must happen. Beyond you taking, I wrote an entire thing on this. Start being a vulnerability researcher yourself. Start just saying, go find vulnerability in this file. Then get, Raptor and try it on your own. Then get OpenANT, and find real vulnerabilities. Try to do it on your own. It's really easy, and you will learn so much. It only takes English. Get an agent today. That's my number one thing. You will accelerate yourself because we can't run at human speed anymore. We need to be at machine speed to deal with machine speed. Point agents at your code today, but get agents to everybody. The GRC people, it doesn't matter. You can take audits that took you, collecting audit information that took you a week into an hour or 5 minutes. Second thing is, beyond use agents and turn agents, whether just with their, as people ask, or with more professional tools. For example, not just OpenAnt in open source. You can go with OpenAI's Codex Security, used to be called Aardvark. There is Cloud Codes, essentially Cloud Code Security, Anthropic's Cloud Code Security. But then also talk to your board, talk to your stakeholders about the changing landscape. They need to not be surprised. It might affect their quarterly reporting to NASDAQ, right? So require agent adoption, turn agents on your code, check your risk and protect your people. Of course, defend your agents. You have to. How do you go about that? Then a couple more examples is onboarding vendors is hard. It's bureaucratically really difficult. Make that easier. Prepare for continuous patching. Update your risk models so everybody talks the same language. Work on inventory. You talked about the basic inventory. Reduce attack surface. Make sure that if there are tools, places you can't patch, you're ready to defend them with mitigating factors, right? Harden your environment. The basics are valid, but they need to be prioritized. You have to do more around that. And you can accelerate the basics with AI, finally, what you couldn't do before. Agents, again. Then do things that are important, but will take you slightly more time. Build a deception capability. It doesn't care what vulnerabilities you use. Deception catches attackers. I used to have a deception startup. Nobody cared about deception. There are a couple of companies out there doing this. Talk to them. See how you can use that technology. Build an automated response capability to free your people to do other things, and stand up your Vuln Ops capability. These are just some of the things in the action plan to get started on things we believe in a consensus in the document.
Are there a lot of resources out there for people to see the full life cycle? Like, I want to be able to take something like a Mythos and scan for vulnerabilities, but then feed that into some other agent that I have to be able to look at my code, to be able to then create the fixes. There's a whole process there. And it seems, in the security world, we typically like the offensive side of, we're really good at showing people how to break things, not so good at showing people how to go in and actually resolve the issues. And so I'm just wondering, because I like how this creates the ability, like if it's all English, right, it's all just natural language. It's something I've talked about forever, right? Like AppSec kind of moves into the development world. QA can sit there and run these same type of things. All they have to do is say, hey, find the vulnerabilities in this code. And I don't need necessarily a specialized pen tester to come in and do that same thing. This will do it for me, and we can get that result a lot quicker. But do we have as much information out there to show people how to do those pieces? I think it's easy to find how to find the vulnerabilities. I'm just curious if there's any work being done to help really push how to take that next step and say, okay, we found it. How do we resolve that? Through the agents and not through, our old school, okay, I'll go in and write a patch for this thing. Like, how do we feed that into the thing? So I can have a full working life cycle of, this is going to go out, it's going to find it, it's going to do this, it's going to apply the patch, it's going to bank my PR, it's going to run the code scanner that peer reviews my PR, everything's going to test, and we're out. And I know everybody's different across their organizations, but
no, I think it's brilliant. So that's what we call VulnOps. Number one, you have a capability to have a 20, 30, 15 people, senior vulnerability researchers working for you right now, right? And looking at every single piece of code you have. That's something that even, two companies had the capability like that, like checking third parties, checking themselves, and now everybody can do it. As to the life cycle in VulnOps, I would say, I think it's science fiction, but people might just start patching third-party software without waiting.
You think so?
But with that said,
you think that's a reality?
Yes, absolutely. I think nobody will believe me right now, but I don't see there is an alternative. I said it in our last call. I think it was more science fiction. But to finish up what you said, yes, you can already use the technologies that are out there, the vendors that are out there, especially the labs, to create some of these things. But it is going to have to be, just like with everything else, you using agents like Cloud Code and Cursor and Copilot on your own, standing up your own VulnOps program, and slowly, as the models get better and do things in one shot, as new products come out and do it for you, you can replace some of that work and build new scaffolding on top of it. Empower, there are a lot of startups out there doing a really good job at this as well. If you start looking, you'll find a lot of stuff. From open source, the big labs, startups building this. But right now, just empower your people with agents. Turn your agents on code using one of the systems that are commercial or free, and protect your agents. Talk to your risk committee and your board about these changes, right? Change your governance so you can bring in new tools faster, and so on and so forth. These are the things we know must happen because we can handle this, but we must demand from our people and empower them. They feel outmoded. They feel they're going to need to retire. They feel they're going to be replaced. Vulnerability researchers, the very best of us, the smartest of us, don't know if they'll have a job, right? Empower your people. Give them agents. Take the risk, because we can't fight machine speed with human speed.
I think that's the comment to end on, is you can't fight machines with human. I mean, speed is definitely one thing, but I think if anything, Gadi, what we're learning is that the computer itself has gotten really good at identifying these types of issues that we've produced faster than us. And it's not that there's not going to be any need for humans. I think the need for humans becomes what's between our ears and helping and understanding prioritization, because you can't brute force this. Tomorrow we may find that some app we're basing the business on in either the operating system or something has like, oh, hey, here's 10,000 new patches. Like, somebody's going to have to prioritize. Somebody's going to have to schedule all that, do the work, mitigate in some cases, apply patches, do the political stuff internally where you have to evangelize and get people to on board with you. It's not like suddenly, James, I don't think suddenly people can be like, oh, okay, now you can go ahead and make downtime windows where we wouldn't let you before because now there's more patches. Like, that's not how this is going to work.
Right. Yeah. And it gets really interesting when you start thinking about the patches coming through, the sheer number of them. All I think about is how I think about S-bombs. And it's like, all it's going to do is just open up a whole bunch more stuff that didn't really need to be addressed, but now all of a sudden it's visible to everybody. All right, it's one of these freaking grading score systems out there for security. And it's like, okay, that doesn't mean anything, but it's out there. Let me go ahead and I'll waste time patching that. Right. There's a lot of interesting parts that come out of getting these things resolved. We also have to consider, is the system when it goes and creates a patch for a finding? I find cross-site scripting, right? Those are usually pretty easy enough. But is it taking into account the logic when it creates the patch? Is it taking into account the other 500 patches that are going into place that when it goes to say, okay, I've had this issue, here's the patch for it, you still have to review that to make sure. Did it just pull out logic that existed there beforehand? I mean, I've seen, I was using a system 2 weeks ago, and I had some if logic in there for something. It's actually a stupid test lab, so it was doing something vulnerable, not vulnerable. And, it went ahead and said, yeah, we don't need this whole if statement. Let's just change it to this. Right? And granted, I mean, it solved the problem from a semantic perspective, not from the purpose of the application, but take that and then apply it out to, okay, I've got 500 things in this application. What's it doing to patch those? And then as I'm saying that right now, it's interesting to think, okay, you've got an agent patching that stuff. Instead of going back and saying, okay, I want to have a custom library to do output encoding. Instead, this thing's just going to be like, well, just patch it this way all over the place. And we've got 1,000 Band-Aids covering these things. There's just a lot of things to think about from the defensive side of how the automation of patching and supplying code fixes actually gets applied. That'll be interesting to see.
Hey, Gotti, as we've run out of time here, I want to give you the final word here, because this is just real quick. Based on what we've just talked about, am I crazy to think that this is going to give the attackers so much of an edge over defenders, at least at the beginning?
Absolutely. You're not crazy. It's exactly what's happening, and it's just the first wave. It's not that we can't handle it. It's not that we won't deal with it. It's not that we won't build defenses, but we have to start now. Yeah. I think that, again, you can already start now. Let's get together and do it. But the fact that I'm trying to calm people down doesn't mean it's not a real... We have all survived 20 apocalypses, okay? But it is a real one. Like Y2K. Oh my God, what do? We deal with it, and oh, nothing happened. Why did we waste time and money on you? This is real. But we have to do a little bit more about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is a great place to end. Once again, thanks for jumping on short notice to talk about it. I mean, this is, I feel like we do something revolutionary now in this space every couple of days. So here's the keeping up and not getting further behind. So Gotti, thanks for joining us. James, has been eye-opening again. I don't know how many more times I need to say
that. Thank you.
But here we are.
And thank you for the opportunity. And of course, if people are interested in protecting their agents, please talk to us at Gnostic.
Yeah, give Gotti a shout, because I think it's. I think this is gonna get weirder before it gets more sane. So, thanks, folks. Thanks for listening. This has been another Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast, episode 703. Give us a like and share and all the cool things that other kids tell you to do to keep us going. And we'll talk to you guys another time, another place on another Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Ciao, y'all.
This is Bella. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to leave my dad a review and share this with your friends. Bye.